Okay. VStream is telling me that we are online.
Okay. On both LinkedIn and on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. I will
Like,
check the community page, view as a member, and see how that is. Oh yeah, I see. Okay. I see a link for the video. So yeah. So LinkedIn
oh yeah, on YouTube
live
it
should
works
be
too.
this
Here,
guy.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, that's LinkedIn. And then YouTube, I'll just sign in now.
All right, we have 5 watching on YouTube. Hello, welcome everyone to a very janky test session by Alex and Rahul.
Okay. Should I just write something in Slack real quick?
Sure, yeah. Why don't we just let people know, we can get some broader feedback. So yeah, while you're doing that, Alex, I can just verbally tell people if they're curious what's happening.
Okay, let me drop all 3 links.
Yeah, so basically what's happening right now is tomorrow, Alex and Rahul, Tech Career Growth, our community that we have, we are going to try something a little bit different where we've been doing these sessions every 2 weeks or so where we just talk about a topic about, advancing your career in tech. But tomorrow, we don't have a single topic in mind. Instead, we asked the 4,000 people in the community to give us questions, like what they want feedback on or what they're curious about. And so we have collected a lot of those questions and we let people vote on them. And tomorrow at 5 p.m. California time, we are going to have a live session where we answer those questions. And so the purpose of today is basically to prepare for tomorrow because we've never actually gone live on 2 platforms before, YouTube and LinkedIn. And so that's what's actually happening right now. And it looks like we are live on YouTube. And I think how many do we have? I see 8 people on YouTube and a couple people on LinkedIn as well. So thanks for joining. Basically what I want to do, what Alex and I will do just for like testing out the stream is we'll have a casual conversation about some of the questions that didn't make the top 5. So let me advance the slide here. So the real session is tomorrow, like I said. We're talking about things like big tech interviews, optimal learning strategy, and more. That'll be tomorrow at 5 p.m. And you can join us at LinkedIn and Slack for more information about this session and others in the future. The links are at the bottom. But for today, we literally spent 5 minutes throwing this slide deck together. And all it has is basically some of the lower ranked questions that we're not going to have time to answer tomorrow, or we might not have time to answer tomorrow. And so that's what we'll just have a casual conversation about. Yeah, Restream is pretty cool though. So for people who are watching, Zoom only allows you natively to go live on one platform. So like historically, we've been going live on YouTube. But LinkedIn also has a live feature, which we have never tried before. And so the thought here was that we could try going live on both YouTube and LinkedIn. And that's what we're doing today using a tool called Restream. And so it's pretty cool. I haven't ever tried Restream before, but it seems to actually work.
Okay, so I made a post on Slack letting people know. I think let's just stick around for 30 minutes, get through the questions. We have an audience of like 15, 20 now, right, Rahul?
Yeah, on YouTube, it looks like we have 13 people. And then on LinkedIn, how can I tell how many people are watching on LinkedIn?
The UI for LinkedIn is not great for like figuring out, what's going on.
Oh, I got the link. It looks like on LinkedIn, we have 3 people watching.
Okay. All right, yeah, we got to react. Sean, thank you.
If you can hear us, or if you are following along at all, please give us a thumbs up or a heart, just so we know that there are people out there. Okay, so Alice, I don't think you had a chance to look at this, but right before you joined the call, I literally took 3 or 4 questions that I thought were interesting that didn't make the top 5, and I copy pasted them on the slide over here. So I thought we could start here as a conversation. And then, if people have other questions, I think there's a couple people on Zoom as well now, and they can ask any questions or chime in whenever. So does that sound good, Alex? We can start here and then go from there.
Yeah, I read the questions that you chose, so I'm good. Worst case, I can always come up with stuff off the top of my head. But yeah, let's just go through the questions that you picked, and then if we have some time left afterwards, maybe we can take a few questions from the audience. Yeah, we have like 5 people in Zoom now. So
Yeah.
welcome. All right, let's just go through it.
Yeah, so the first question that I pulled out is, what constitutes a good side project in the eyes of an employer? And I love this question because if anyone had joined the session that Alex and I gave about side projects, we've given 2 sessions about side projects. You'll know that Alex and I are really, really big believers in side projects and the ability to demonstrate a competency as a software engineer using a side project, right? It almost, the current way of sourcing and evaluating engineering candidates is so broken, in my opinion. It's like, why would you evaluate the competency of an engineer based on where they went to school or what classes they took? It's obviously going to be better to judge them based on the actual engineering work. And the way you demonstrate work is through side projects. And so this question is really near and dear to our heart, which is what constitutes a good side project. I think the number one thing is, do you actually have people who are using your project? Alex is a really good demonstration of this. He literally has built up more than 30 applications, Android applications on his own, which combined have more than 2 million installs. And I mean, I'll let him talk about the impact that that has had on his career, but that is the gold standard in my mind. If you have a product or an app or something which people are actually getting value from, whether that's a library and it's for other developers, or it's an actual application that end users are using for some utility in their life, you're basically building a startup. It may not be monetizable, or it may not be a VC-backed startup, but you essentially are building an actual app end to end, and that is the true mark of a good engineer. So that is, I think, the gold standard in terms of what makes a good side project.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Essentially, the only metric that really matters when it comes to side projects is the amount of users it has. Like, is it actually adding value in the world by being used? And if we really like zoom out here, let's think about why you would get hired. Let's say you're applying for a job, a React developer job, right? And then the problem nowadays is that anyone can claim that they have learned a certain technology, in this case React, like within 1 or 2 months. There's a million amazing React tutorials online. Anyone can follow a React tutorial and build an amazing clone of some popular website, build like, you know, a nice looking shell of like the Airbnb site or the Instagram site, etc. Right? So as a recruiter for this React job with 100 React applications, how am I going to know which ones are worth investing in? Which one should I give an interview for? So my goal is to figure out who writes the best React, or who writes, you know, one of the upper tiers of React among these 100 people. Maybe I'll give 5 or 10 people an interview. So how do you do that? So the recruiter, again, is not an engineer. So even if you link your GitHub, they can't come and like read your React code to see if it's clean or whatever, right? Like they just can't do that. And zooming out here, good React code isn't, you know, React code that has clean variables or good abstractions or whatever. The best React code is the React code that is used by a lot of people, that goes into an application that's used by a lot of people, because that's the point of a company, right? They want to create business value. They want to create a product that's used by people. So the easiest and clearest way for this hypothetical recruiter behind this React role, looking at all these applications where the person has worked with React before in some capacity, how they find the best React developer is who has written the React code that is actually being used in production by lots of users. And that's by definition the React code that has added the most business value, which is why they hire you. So yeah, it's really that simple. Like conceptually, like what qualifies, like how do you stand out from the other applicants with your projects? It's you build projects that are actually used.
Yeah, and there's one more dimension here that I want to just add on to what Alex described at the end, which was when you're thinking about what makes a good side project for an employer, I think sometimes people don't realize that the first layer that you have to get past is the recruiter, right? It's not like an engineer is going to evaluate your resume or your portfolio. The first person who will evaluate it, and they're the gatekeeper on whether you proceed with that company or not, that is going to be a recruiter. And the issue with the recruiter, or I don't want to say issue, because I mean, I think recruiters are doing their best, but the thing that we have to watch out for is that recruiters are not going to take the time to actually look at your GitHub repository and like look at how clean your code is or how technically sophisticated your code is, right? That's what Alex was saying. And so the undeniable proof that you are building something of value is if you have people who are using what you've built. And that is really the kind of the gold standard. And I think, Alex and I have been talking about this a lot. And I think this is something that we're working on, trying to figure out if there's something that we can do to help people understand that value and, give them a framework or some sort of feedback mechanism that will help them create apps or side projects which get them further. Cool. So the next question is, again, these are, when I say the next question or like top question, these are some of the highly voted questions that didn't make the top 5. The ones that we're going to talk about tomorrow are the top 5, and those are the ones that Alex and I have actually spent some time preparing answers for. So please do join us tomorrow. But another one that was commonly asked with 42 votes was, what are the top 3 things to do in the first week of joining a new team? What about within 1 month and 3 months? So I love this question because I'm actually literally, as of last week, I switched teams. So I effectively am in this situation where I'm joining a new team, and I'll describe what I've been doing and what I plan on doing in the next 1 or 2 months. And then Alex, I think also he recently joined a company, so he can talk about what he did. But for me, and the biggest thing for me, the biggest priority is obviously there's some technical depth I need to understand about the new tech stack and the code base that I'm joining on this new team. But equally as important, and in some ways more important than that, is the ability to gain the context of what are the big pain points of this new team, how are people thinking about the urgency of these problems, and what are they doing right now, and like where can I contribute, right? And so in order to get that context, the best thing you can do is meet with people, and not just meet with your manager or like your assigned mentor. What you should do, and this is what I'm actively doing, is meet with literally every single person on your direct team and many, many people on your partner teams. Because there are 2 things that happen when you make those meetings. One is that you obviously are able to gain that context. But second, you're able to start building trust with these people. And especially as you become more senior, your ability to have that rapport and that trust with your coworkers is going to be essential for how you get things done. And so when you talk to people and say, hey, they tell you that, hey, I have this problem, and you give them an idea about here's something they could do to fix it, or hey, here, I can jump in and try and address that. That is really how you are able to build that trust. And then later on, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, I'm able to leverage that trust and that reputation to be much more effective with whatever project I'm leading. So that would be the big thing that I would say in terms of the top 1 thing, which is just meet with people. And the top 3 things I would say, like meet with people. Obviously, you have to get your hands dirty with the code base. Usually what I like to do is check out the code and then like make an improvement in the documentation or like add a unit test, even if that's not really meaningful or it's not moving the needle. Just going through the flow of committing code is extremely valuable if you're ramping up.
Yeah, this is a tough question because it's asking for 9 things, 3 times 3, because it's like top 3 for first week and top 3 for 1 month, and then top 3 for 3 months. Top 3 is kind of hard to digest, especially for 1 week. So I'll just give an idea of like where I want to be at each phase. So you can't do much in the first week. By the end of the first week, I think I would be happy if I had a few of the one-on-ones. I should probably have a one-on-one with my manager within the first week, maybe the tech lead as well, and maybe 1 or 2 other engineers. But you can't have one-on-ones with a whole team of like 10, 15 engineers within week 1. That's just way too many. You probably have a bunch of onboarding stuff. Of course, there's more tactical stuff like choosing your health insurance and stuff like that. So like make sure you do that. So yeah, I think just a few one-on-ones for week one, and then very tactical onboarding stuff and like benefits setup and stuff like that. 1 month is that's where things get more interesting. I think after a month, I definitely would want to have one-on-ones with pretty much all the core players on my team and whatever teams that my team works closely with. After a month, I want to be proficient with the code base, pretty proficient at the code base at that point. Like probably not 100%. I think getting really to 100% takes at least 3 months, but I would say at least 50 to 75%, essentially to the point where getting like a pull request merged in does not feel painful anymore. Technical proficiency is like pretty important. I think like yeah, those are the main things. The first one is more about just like not being a baby anymore, where you need help with everything. That's kind of where I see like where I want to be after 1 month. And I wouldn't be focused on like any sort of leadership capabilities after just 1 month. You essentially need to build a street cred as an engineer, as someone who can code well and really like hang with the team in terms of like technical skill before you really start trying to lead stuff. So after 3 months for me, and this is the case for me at Robinhood, I want to have a good amount of like street cred at that point. So I want to have strong relationships, continue having one-on-ones, ideally have a couple of recurring one-on-ones with very important people. And then start growing, like start pitching things. I think after 3 months, as a senior engineer, if I don't have enough street cred to be leading stuff at that point, I wouldn't be very happy with myself. And it's also kind of a requirement for me to be leading things regularly as a senior engineer. So I would want to be like leading things at that point and like proposing initiatives that help out like the entire team, either my immediate team or like the team that's built around my stack, in which case for my case is the Robinhood Android team.
Yeah, I dropped a link just now on the YouTube chat and also the Zoom chat. I don't know how to drop a link on the LinkedIn live stream. I guess I could add a comment.
You can comment on it. It's like really weird.
Okay, yeah, I might do that if it doesn't like I'm too noisy. But yeah, basically there's a pretty senior executive at Facebook, and he wrote an article called The Career Cold Start Algorithm. And that was pretty impactful for me. It describes basically an algorithm on how you can effectively ramp up when you join a new team, which is exactly what this question is asking. I think his is equally applicable not only for people who are joining as an engineer, but also as a manager, because managers especially are a lot about context and trust and direction setting. But his advice is basically exactly what Alex and I've been saying. Just like meet up with a lot of people and build that trust early on, and like figure out what immediate impact you can have, like even small things like like this person wants more conversation or more communication with another person or with another team, so you can help them with that, things like that. Sometimes when you have a fresh perspective, you actually have a lot of value in being able to find out small things that can have a big impact, because you have this novel perspective that people may not have realized.
Yeah. So we move on to the next question.
Yeah, so next question, 36 votes, was if you have an offer, how do you juggle the extended offer and interviewing at other companies? So this is basically touching on this pretty broad topic of negotiation, which Alex and I haven't actually done a full session on, but I think that would be really fun, because I've had a ton of experience with negotiation, good and bad. So I can definitely share some of the things that helped me out here. And I've been in this situation before where I have an offer from one company, but I'm still actively interviewing. At other companies. And the big thing here is be transparent with the recruiter. So if you're looking for a new job, then that job, like your career, you're going to be spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week on your job, right? And so it's going to be a huge impact on your quality of life, not only in terms of compensation, of course, but also in terms of your happiness with like the people you work with, the work you're doing, the impact you're having on the company or on the world. And so I think it's 100% reasonable to tell the recruiter and basically say, hey, thank you for the offer. I'm really excited by the work that your company is doing, but this is a really, really big decision for me. And I need an extra 2 weeks right now in order to finish my process at these other companies. And I want to have all the data on the table before I can commit to you, because this is a big decision for me. And I think in my experience, as long as you're upfront from the very beginning about how you're thinking about timeline, most companies are 100% amenable to that. And they're going to be receptive to, accommodating a couple of weeks here or there. If you tell them, hey, I need an extra 3 months, that probably won't go over well. But ideally, you want to time all your interviews such that you get offers within 2 or 3 weeks. And at that point, most companies should be receptive to
that. Yeah, I think so. I'm not very good at negotiating / getting multiple offers for like both my previous 2 jobs, Robinhood at Facebook and Facebook. I literally only interviewed with that company. I'm a depth kind of person. But my advice here is like, if you already have an offer, but like you're still interviewing at other companies that you're interested in, work backwards from the end goal. You'll hear Rahul and I say that a lot. Your end goal is to have multiple concurrent offers, because that's when you, as the applicant / candidate, you have the most leverage, because you can pit the offers against each other to get as much compensation as possible. So yeah, definitely agree on being like, having a good relationship with the recruiter. I think your goal at this point is to, number one, keep the offer that you have on the table for as long as possible. Try to buy time. And then you want to expedite your interviews at other companies so that you can try to get concurrent offers. So if you have an offer already, especially if it's pretty good, you have leverage over the companies you're interviewing with. Like if there's a company you are interviewing with, but you're only at the phone screen, you could maybe mention like, hey, I have an offer and I only have X amount of time and I like this offer. Can you expedite the process for me? Maybe they can skip you to the on-site round, or if you've already done the on-site, maybe you can expedite the feedback process that they go through, the calibration to see if they extend your offer or not. Just so you can make a decision with the most information. That's more or less the advice I have there.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I want to add, and I think there are some questions on the YouTube live stream, which I'll get to as well. But one thing that I think people don't realize enough is that they actually have a lot of power in these situations, more than they give themselves credit for. Like, if you have received an offer from a tech company, the way it typically works at these big like FANG companies like Google or Microsoft or whatever, they have a funnel, right? The way it works is like they reach out to a bunch of candidates. Of that, some percentage of them will actually engage and say, hey, I'm interested in interviewing or having a conversation. Of that, some percent will go to the phone screen. Of that, some percent will go to the on-site. And then of that final bucket, only some percent of those will get offers, right? And so at a lot of these competitive companies, maybe 5% of the people will make it all the way down and get that offer, or maybe even less. And so you have to understand that it's very expensive for the company to keep interviewing people. And so if you have the offer with the company, you have that power that they really, really don't want to interview 100 more people to find someone like you. They've already made a decision that you're worth it, and they'll actually, in my experience, they'll be happy to kind of wait for a week or two for a decision, because you're one of those rare people who have actually made it all the way through the funnel. And then there's a question about how transparent should you be with competing offers. You shouldn't be transparent with the numbers of your competing offers. What you should be is just transparent with the timeline and the process. So what you can say is, hey, I'm interviewing with you and I'm excited by the work you're doing, but I'm also talking to these 2 or 3 other companies. And you probably don't even need to mention the company names, because that doesn't really help you. Just say that, hey, I'm also going through the process at a couple other companies right now. But I definitely wouldn't mention like the numbers that you got at the other company. There's a huge information asymmetry, and you should make sure that you try and only share information that will help you. And then another question from Nimish, is it valid for new grads also? Yes, 100% it is. I had a bunch of offers when I was graduating from Stanford, and they were all very receptive to like basically extending the timeline in order to accommodate all the different interviews they had. And in fact, at Stanford, they had a rule where a company is not allowed to give you an exploding offer. So an exploding offer is one where they'll give you an offer, and then like they'll tell you you have 24 hours to decide if you want this or not. So like those are not allowed if you are trying to give an offer to a Stanford student. You have to give them at least, I think the rule is like 2 or 3 weeks. And if you're going through the standard followed recruiting cycle, you have to give them up until like November 1st. So that was actually really nice because it put the pressure off the student. And like the conclusion of my process at Stanford was that I had a meaningful increase in compensation once I had gone through the whole process. Okay.
Nice. Next question. How do you know when it's time to leave a company? Rahul, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I think that there's a really nice video by Gary Tan. I don't know if people here are familiar with him. He's also a YouTuber and a venture capitalist. And he gave what I thought was really good advice, which is either learn or earn, and ideally both. And the idea there is that if you're at a job, you absolutely have to be learning something. And if you're not learning something that you think is very employable or that you want to be learning, you need to be earning. Like you need to be getting paid well, because obviously a lot of us, like that's really important in terms of quality of life and being able to plan for the future. You need to be paid well, right? And so if both of those are not true, you're not being paid well and you're not learning anything, then you absolutely need to leave as soon as is feasible. That's like one quick heuristic. I think the other thing is when I've left jobs in the past, the way to think about it is think about your slope rather than your y-intercept. And what that means is like, don't think about where you are now. Think about what is your growth trajectory at that company. And usually, especially when you're more junior, you have a lot of growth potential earlier on because companies expect you to kind of go up the ladders relatively quickly when you're a new grad. But once you become more senior, it becomes harder and harder to find enough scope to advance your career. And so if you feel like you're at a team or at a company where you don't have that capability, then that's another reason why I think you should leave if you are not getting the feedback you need or want from your manager about scope. Alex, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think what you said is all good. As mentioned before, you want to work backward from a goal. So you need to figure out what your goal is. If your goal is to learn a particular technology and you're learning a lot about a particular technology at this company, then that's good. And if your goal is I just want to, level up and make more money, and you're not really getting promoted at a fast enough rate or just not getting promoted at all, which is, I think, a very, very common goal in not just tech, but in the corporate world in general, then it's also time to leave. I think that's essentially how I figured out when I wanted to leave, because I think one of the greatest assets you can have as not just engineer, but as a person, is you have a clear North Star. Like you have a clear idea of what you where you want to go, what you want to be. So for me, I knew I wanted to be an absolutely amazing Android developer. So that was a pretty easy way for me to clear way for me to leave my first 2 companies. PayPal didn't even let me code Android, so easy. And I wasn't really getting promoted at PayPal. Coursera, I learned Android, but I hit a ceiling because I was the most senior Android engineer there. I was the Android lead. I couldn't hire a more senior Android engineer than myself. Also, the compensation was below market compared to the top players like Facebook, Google, etc. So that was another reason to leave. Facebook was harder, but I think for me is my goal became more multifaceted. Not only did I want to become amazing at Android, but I also wanted to work on really big, impactful products, and I really enjoy building stuff from scratch. So that's kind of hard to do in a giant company. I came to miss kind of the startup life and the startup dynamic as I was at Facebook for so long. So that's the core reason why I left Facebook. So yeah, if you have a very clear understanding of your goals and you're regularly figuring out, looking at your current situation and be okay, is this company supporting me towards my goals? Then I think it's really easy to figure out when it's time to leave the company.
Yeah. And then real quick check-in. So Alex, I'm seeing that we have 17 live on YouTube now, and then 3 people on LinkedIn. Is that what you're seeing too? LinkedIn is just
yeah, there's 3 people on LinkedIn. By the way, the LinkedIn stream is super broken for me. It's terrible quality and it gets stuck. So we might not end up doing LinkedIn live tomorrow.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think the LinkedIn live product is very immature compared to YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's why whenever someone joins a LinkedIn Live, they leave like 2 minutes later. So now I think I know why. So this, how do you know when it's time to leave a company? We've been on this slide for like 5 minutes now, and it only recently did it actually transition from the previous slide to this one. And I've refreshed the stream multiple times too. It's not great.
All right. So
anyways, thanks to everyone here for helping us test this.
Yeah, it's the first time, doing this multifaceted stream. So yeah, thanks for helping. Okay, so that was all the prepared questions I had. Just recap. We can maybe spend a couple minutes, if people have live questions, but yeah, like the actual session where we have more prepared answers and hopefully it'll be a little bit more eloquent and more polished is tomorrow, 5 p.m. California time. We're going to be answering the top 5 questions in the poll, which had a lot more votes than these. And please do join us on LinkedIn and Slack to get more info. Anything to add, Alex?
I don't think so. There is a question in the chat. Where you mentioned, my recruiter told me they're hiring a lot of people at Facebook London currently. In your opinion, how does that affect my interview process? So essentially the question is, if there's a lot of people being hired, does the interview process become easier if there's more people getting hired? Essentially, if the demand for new employees is high, the answer, at least for Facebook, is yes, but not by a lot and not in the way you think. So I think one of the reasons why Facebook, Google, etc. are all so strong is they have a hiring bar that never gets moved. They're able to hire a consistently high level of talent, like throughout the tens of thousands of engineers they hired across like all these years. It gets easier in that if there's not a lot of positions but a lot of applicants, it's possible that you hit that bar and maybe even clear it. But if there's like a bunch of other people who also hit the bar, then they're going to hire them first, right? But you still have to hit the Facebook bar, which is really, really high. But if essentially the supply of positions is really high relative to the demand, then you'll have a better chance of getting the offer if you hit the bar, because there won't be as many other people who hit the bar. So that's answers that question. But yeah, I think we're good. I think we finished by 10 p.m. PST, which is our target.
Yeah. I agree with Alex on that question. I think these big companies they won't change the quality bar or like what they're looking for, but it does help because they're going to be more aggressive with reaching out to candidates and giving people second chances potentially later on. But yeah, it's 10 p.m. California time. Do you want to do like one or two more, Alex, or should we call it and then
it's late. I think we should just call it, and I don't see any raised hands, so yeah, I think we're
on Zoom. So there's like Greg is asking about web developer students, and Silly Sour is asking about not good. Okay, so for those questions, what we can do is if you both join our Slack community, would love to help you out. It is kind of late over here in California time, so Alex and I are probably gonna head to bed soon, but would love to help you out one-on-one or in a group channel. So just please join Slack. The link, I can go back. The link is down here at the bottom. techcareergrowth.slack.com. Cool. Thanks everyone for bearing with us as we test out this kind of new functionality on LinkedIn. It seems like it didn't actually work out that well, so we might end up sticking.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but yeah, thanks so much to everyone here for kind of indulging us and helping us test this. Unless some sort of miracle happens, we're probably not going to use LinkedIn Live tomorrow. The quality of the stream was really, really poor. So yeah, thank you all, and have a good night or morning or afternoon, wherever you guys are.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you.